Shalom, this is Hassania again. I am coming back with another reading, and I may do yet another reading. I'm not sure. But we've reached 2 Kings in the Hallelujah Scriptures, which I'm pretty excited about. We're moving along. Okay. So I'm actually going to, say a quick word of prayer, and we'll go right ahead and continue. Heavenly Father, thank you. Tawada, Tawada, Tawada. Bless you, Father. Thank you for placing the desire in me to just open the Bible and understand it. And Father, I just ask for this session, just Father, to be graced with your wisdom and understanding and knowledge, for discernment, for your Holy Spirit, Father, to lead me into all truth concerning what I'm reading. Because I also know that the Gentiles got a hold of our book, and there are truths, but there are also mistruths. So, Father, lead me into all truth. Please don't allow me to be deceived by the kingdom of darkness. And Father, just allow me to put together what I'm reading in the correct way, to interpret it correctly, Father, or to understand it correctly. And Father, again, just lead me. Please lead me and guide me as I read. Thawada, Thawada, Thawada. Thank you, Father. These are all things I ask in your Son's name, in your name, Father. So be it, and may it be so. Okay, so 2 Kings, chapter 1. And Moab revolted against Yasharel after the death of Ahab, and Ahaz fell through the lattice of his upper room in Shemaron and was injured, and sent messengers and said to them, Go, inquire of Baal Zebub, the mighty one of Ekron, and I shall recover from this injury. But a messenger of Yah spoke to Eliah the Tishbite, I think that's Elijah, yes. Rise up, go up to meet the messengers of the sovereign of Shimron, and say to them, Is it because there is no Elohim in Yasharel that you are going to inquire of Beelzebub, the mighty one of Ekron? So therefore, thus said Yah, you are not going to go out of the bed to which you have gone up, for you shall certainly die. And Eliah went, and the messengers returned to him, and he said to them, Why have you come back? And they said to him, A man came up to meet us, and said to us, Go, return to the sovereign who sent you, and say to him, Thus said Yah, it is because there is no Elohim in Yasharel that you are sending to inquire of Beelzebub, the mighty one of Ekron. Therefore you are not going to get out of the bed to which you have gone up, for you shall certainly die. And he said to them, What was the man like who came up to meet you and spoke to you these words? And they answered him, He was a hairy man, and wore a leather girdle around his waist. And he said, It is Elijah the Tishbite. He then sent to him a captain of 50 and his 50 men. And he went up to him, and see, he was sitting on the top of a hill. And he spoke to him, Man of Elohim, the sovereign has said, Come down. And Eliyahu answered and said to the captain of 50, And if I am a man of Elohim, let fire come down from the Shamaim and consume you and your 50 men. And fire came down from the Shamaim, consumed him and his 50. Wow. And then sent another captain of 50 with his 50 men to him. And he answered and said to him, Man of Elohim, this is what the sovereign said, Come down at once. And Elijah answered and said to them, If I am a man of Elohim, let fire come down from the Shamaim and consume you and your 50 men. And a fire of Elohim came down from the Shamaim and consumed him and his 50. Okay, this is funny because after the first, I would not have gone with the second. Okay, and again he sent a third captain of 50 with his 50 men, and the third captain of 50 went up and came and fell on his knees before Eliyahu and pleaded with him and said to him, Man of Elohim, please let my life and the life of these 50 servants of yours be precious in your eyes. Yes. See, fire has come down from the Shamahim and burned up the first two captains of 50s with their 50s. But let my life be precious in your eyes. And the messenger of Yah said to Eliyahu, Go down with him, do not be afraid of him. So he rose up and went down with him to the sovereign and spoke to him. Thus says Yah, because you have sent messengers to inquire of Beelzebub, the mighty one of Ekron, it is because there is no Elohim, and Yasharel to inquire of his word. Therefore you are not going to get out of the bed to which you have gone up, for you shall certainly die. And he died, according to the word of Yah, which Eliyahu had spoken. And Jehoram reigned in his place in the second year of Jehoram, son of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehudah, for he had no son. Hold on. And he died according to the word of Yah, which Eliyahu had spoken. And Jehoram reigned in his place in the second year of Jehoram, son of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehudah, for he had no son. Okay. And the rest of the acts of Ahaz, Yahu, which he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yasharel? Chapter 2. And it came to be when Yah was to take up Eliyahu to the Shamaim by a whirlwind that Eliyahu went with Elisha from Gilgal. And Eliyahu said to Elisha, Please remain here, for Yah has sent me to Bethel. And Elisha said, As Yah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And they went down to Bethel, and the sons of the Nabim who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, Do not you know that Yah is taking away your master from your head? And he said, I also know, be silent. And Eliyahu said to him, Elisha, please remain here, for Yah has sent me on to Jericho, or Jericho, I think this is. And he said, As Yah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And they came into Jericho. And the sons of the Nabim who were at Jericho came to Elisha and said to him, Do you know that Yah is taking away your master from over you today? And he said, I also know, be silent. And Eliyahu said to him, Please remain here, for Yah has sent me on to the Jordan. And he said, As Yah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And the two of them went on. And 50 men of the sons of Nabim went and stood facing them at a distance, while the two of them stood by the Jordan. And Eliyahu Okay, and Eliyahu said to him, Please remain here, for Yah has sent me to the Jordan. And he said, As Yah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And the two of them went on. And 50 men of the sons of Nabim went and stood facing them at a distance, while the two of them stood by the Jordan. And Eliyahu took his mantle and rolled it up and struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, so that the two of them passed over on dry ground. And it came to be, when they had passed over, that Eliyahu said to Elisha, Ask what I am to do for you before I am taken away from you. And Elisha said, Please let a double portion of your spirit be upon me. And he said, You have made it hard to ask. Yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it is yours, but if not, it is not. And it came to be, as they continued on and spoke, that see a chariot of fire with horses of fire, which separated the two of them, And Eliyahu went up by a whirlwind into the Shamaim. Hmm. And Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariot of Yasharel and its horsemen. And he saw him no more. Then he took hold of his own garments and tore them into two pieces. And he took up the mantle of Eliyahu that had fallen from him, and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan, or the Jordan. And he took the mantle of Eliyahu that had fallen from him and struck the water and said, Where is Yah, Elohim of Eliyahu? And he struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, and Elisha passed over. And when the sons of the Nabim, who were from Jericho, saw him, they said, The spirit of Eliyahu rests on Elisha. And they came to meet him and bowed to the ground before him. And they said to him, Look, there are 50 strong men with your servants. Please let them go and search for your master, lest the Ruah of Yah has taken him up and cast him upon some mountain or into some valley. And he said, Send no one. But they pressed upon him till he was ashamed, and he said, Sin. So they sent 50 men, and they searched for 3 days, but did not find him. And they returned to him, for he remained in Jericho. And he said to them, Did I not say to you, do not go? And the men of the city said to Elisha, Look, the site of this city is good, as my master sees, but the waters are spoilt, and the land barren. And he said, Bring me a new bow. And he put salt in it, and they brought it to him. And he went out to the source of the water, and threw salt in there, and said, Thus says Yah, I have healed this water. No longer shall death or barrenness come from it. And the waters were healed to this day, according to the word of Elisha, which he spoke. And he went up from there to Bethel. And as he was going up the way, some youths came from the city and mocked him and said to him, Go up, bald head, go up, bald head. And he turned around and looked at them and pronounced a curse on them in the name of Yah. And 2 female bears came out of the forest and tore to pieces 42 of the youths. And from there he went to Mount Carmel, and from there he returned to Shimron. Chapter 3. And Jehoram, son of Ahab, began to reign over Yasharel at Shimron in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehuda, and reigned 12 years. And he did evil in the eyes of Yah, but not like his father and mother. The son of For he removed the statue of Baal, which his father had made, but he clung to the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had made Yasharel sin. He did not turn away from them. And Mesha, sovereign of Moab, was a sheep breeder, and he paid the sovereign of Yasharel 100,000 lambs and the wool of 100,000 rams. And it came to be, when Ahab died, that the sovereign of Moab revolted against the sovereign of Yasharel. And the sovereign Jehoram went out of Shimron at that time and mustered all Yasharel. And he went and sent to Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehuda, saying, The sovereign of Moab has revolted against me. Do you go with me to fight against Moab? And he said, I go up. I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses. And he said, Which way do we go up? And he said, By way of the wilderness of Edom. And the sovereign of Yasharel went, and the sovereign of Yehuda, and the sovereign of Edom, and the sovereign of Israel went, and the sovereign of Yehuda, and the sovereign of Edom, and went round a journey of 7 days. And there was no water for the army, nor for the cattle that followed them. And the sovereign of Yasharel said, What? Has Yah called these 3 sovereigns to give them into the hand of Moab? And Jehoshaphat said, Is there no Nabi of Yah here? Then let him inquire of Yah through him. One of the servants of the sovereign of Yasharel then answered and said, Elisha, son of Shaphat, is here, who poured water out on the hands of Eliyahu. And Jehoshaphat said, the words of Yah is with him. And the sovereign of Yasharel and Jehoshaphat and the sovereign of Edom went down to him. And Elisha said to the sovereign of Yasharel, what have I to do with you? Go to the prophets of your father and the prophets of your mother. And the sovereign of Yasharel said to him, no, for Yah has called these three sovereigns to give them into the hand of Moab. And Elisha said, as Yah of hosts lives, before whom I stand, if it were not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehuda, I would not look at you nor see you. And now bring me a harpist. And it came to be, when the harpist played, that the hand of Yah came upon him. And he said, thus says Yah, make this wadi ditches. For thus said Yah, you are not going to see wind nor rain. Yet that wadi is to be filled with water, so that you, your cattle, and your beasts shall drink. And this shall be but a light matter in the eyes of Yah, and he shall give Moab into your hand, and you shall smite every walled city and every choice city, and shall cut down every good tree, and stop up every fountain of water, and ruin every good piece of land with stones. And it came to be in the morning, when the grain offering was offered, that see, water came by way of Edom, and the land was filled with water. And when all Moab heard that the sovereigns had come up to fight against them, all who were able to bear arms and odor were gathered, and they stood at the border. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun was shining on the water. And the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood. And they said, this is blood. The sovereigns have indeed struck swords and have killed one another. And now Moab to the spoil. And they came to the camp of Yisrael, and Yisrael rose up and smote the Moabites, so that they fled before them. And they entered their land and smote the Moabites. And they broke down the cities, and each man threw a stone on every good piece of land and filled it. And they stopped up all the fountains of water and cut down all the good trees until the stones of Ker Hareseth were left. And the slingers went round and smote it. And when the sovereign of Moab saw that the battle was too strong for him, he took with him 700 men who drew swords to break through to the sovereign of Edom, but they could not. Then took his eldest son, who would have reigned in his place, and offered him as a burnt offering upon the wall. And there was great wrath against Yasharel, and they left him and returned to the land. Okay, chapter 4. And a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the Nabim cried out to Elisha, saying, your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant revered Yah, and the lender has come to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. Okay. And Elisha said to her, what should I do for you? Inform me, what do you have in the house? And she said, your female servant has none at all in the house except a pot of oil. And he said, go borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels, do not get a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons. Then pour it into all the vessels and put aside the filled ones. So she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought to her, and she poured it out. And it came to be when the vessels were filled that she said to her son, bring me another vessel. But he said to her, there is not another vessel, and the oil has ceased. So she went and informed the man of Elohim, and he said, go, sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. And it came to be on a day that Elisha went to Shunem, where there was a prominent woman, and she urged him to eat some food. And it came to be as often as he passed by that he turned in there to eat some food. And she said to her husband, look, I know that this is a Kadash man of Elohim who passes by us continually. Please let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed for him there, and a table, and a chair, and a lampstand. And it shall be, whenever he comes to us, let him turn in there. And it came to be on a day that he came there, and he turned into the upper room and lay down there. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, shall this Shunammite woman, call this Shunammite woman. So he called her, and she stood before him. And he said to him, please say to her, look, you have gone to all this trouble for us. What is there to be done for you? Should I speak on your behalf to the sovereign or to the commander of the army? And she answered, I am dwelling among my own people. And he said, what then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, well, she has no son, and her husband is old. And he said, call her. So he called her, and she stood in the doorway. And he said, about this time next year you shall embrace a son. And she said, no, my master, man of Elohim, do not lie to your female servant. And the woman conceived and bore a son when the appointed time had come, of which Elisha had spoken to her. And the child grew, and it came to be on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers. And he said to his father, my head, my head. And he said to a servant, take him to his mother. So he took him and brought him to his mother, and he sat on his knees till noon and died. Okay. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of Elohim and shut him in and went out. And she called to her husband and said, please send me one of the young men and one of the donkeys, so that I hurry to the man of Elohim and return. And he said, why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Shabbat. And she said, it is well. And she saddled the donkey, and she said to her servant, drive and go, do not slow down, except I speak to you. And she went and came to the man of Elohim at Mount Carmel. And it came to be, when the man of Elohim saw her at a distance, that he said to his servant Gehazi, see the Shunammite woman. Please run now to meet her, and say to her, is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with your child? And she answered, it is well. And she came to the man of Elohim at the hill, and she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to push her away. But the man of Elohim said, leave her alone, for her being is bitter in her, and Yah has hidden it from me, and has not revealed it to me. And she said, did I ask a son of my master? Did I not say, do not deceive me? And he said to Gehazi, gird up your loins and take my staff in your hand and go. When you meet anyone, do not greet him, and when anyone greets you, do not answer him. And you shall lay my staff on the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, as Yah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And he rose and followed her. And Gehazi went on ahead of them and laid the staff on the face of the child. But there was no voice, and there was no hearing. So he went back to meet him and reported to him, saying, the child has not awakened. And Elisha came into the house and saw the child was dead, laying on his bed. And he went in and shut the door behind the two of them and prayed to Yah. And he went up and lay on the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, and his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands, and stretched himself out on the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. And he returned and walked back and forth in the house. then went up and stretched himself out on him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi and said, "Call this Shunammite." So he called her. And she came in to him, and he said, "Pick up your son." Then she went in and fell at his feet and bowed herself to the ground and picked up her son and went out. And Elisha returned to Gilgal. And the scarcity of food was in the land, and the sons of the Nabim were sitting before him. And he said to his servant, "Put on the large pot and cook stew for the sons of the Nabim." And one went out to the field to gather plants and found a wild vine and gathered wild cucumbers from it, filling the skirt of his garment, and came and sliced them into the pot of stew. Though they did not know what they were, they then served it to the men to eat. And it came to be, as they were eating the stew, that they cried out and said, "O man of Elohim, there is death in the pot." And they were unable to eat. And he said, "Then bring some flour." And he put it into the pot and said, serve it to the people to eat." And there was no evil matter in the pot. Now a man came from Baal, Shalesha, and brought the man of Elohim bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley bread, and newly ripened grain in his knapsack. And he said, "Give it to the people to eat." And his servant said, "What? Do I put this before 100 men? And he said, "Give it to the people to eat. For thus said Yah, eat and have some left over." And he put it before them, and they ate and had some left over, according to the word of Yah. Chapter 5. And Naaman, commander of the army of the sovereign of Aram, was a great man in the eyes of his master. Oh, change. In the eyes of his master, and highly respected, because by him Yah had given deliverance to Aram. And though a brave man was leprous, and the Arameans had gone out on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Yasharel, and she served as wife of Naaman. And she said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the Nabi who is in Shemaron, then he would recover him of his leprosy." And Naaman went in and reported to his master, saying, Thus spoke the girl who is from the land of Yasharel. And the sovereign of Aram said, "Go, enter, and let me send a letter to the sovereign of Yasharel." And he went and took with him 10 kikars of silver and 6,000 gold and 10 changes of garments. And he brought the letter to the sovereign of Yasharel, which said, "And now, when this letter comes to you, see, I have sent Naaman, my servant, to you, so that you shall recover him of his leprosy." Okay. And it came to be, when the sovereign of Yasharel read the letter, that he tore the garments and said, "Am I Elohim to kill and keep alive, that this man sends a man to me to recover him of leprosy? For consider now and see how he is seeking an occasion with me." And it came to be, when Elisha the man of Elohim heard that the sovereign of Yasharel had torn his garments, that he sent to okay that he sent to the sovereign, saying, "Why have you torn your garments? Please let him come to me, so that he knows that there is a Nabi in Yasharel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariots, and he stood at the entrance of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go, and you shall wash 7 times in the Jordan, that your flesh might be restored to you and be clean." Hmm. And Naaman became wroth and went away and said, see, I said to myself, he would certainly come out to me and stand and call on the name of Yah, his Elohim, and wave his hand over the place and recover the leprosy, and not the Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Yasharel. Are not the Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of the Damascus, better than all the waters of Yasharel? Could I not wash in them and be clean? And he turned and went away in rage. And his servants came near and spoke to him and said, my father, if the Nabi had spoken to you a great matter, would you not have done it? How much more then when he says to you, wash and be clean? Then he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of Elohim, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of Elohim, he and all his company, and came and stood before him and said, see, now I know that there is no Elohim in all the earth except in Yasharel. And now please take a gift from your servant. But he said, as Yah lives, before whom I stand, I do not accept it. And he pressed on him to accept it, but he refused. Then Naaman said, if not, please let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth, for no longer is your servant going to make a burnt offering and slaughter to other mighty ones, but to Yah. Yah grant forgiveness to your servant in this matter when my master goes into the house of Rimmon to worship there. And he leans on my hand, and I bow down in the house of Rimmon. When I bow down in the house of Rimmon, Yah, please grant forgiveness to your servant in this matter. Then he said to him, go in peace. And he walked from him some distance. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of Elohim, said, look, my master has spared Naaman, this Aramean, while not receiving from his hands what he brought. But as Yah lives, I shall run after him and take whatever from him. And Gehazi pursued Naaman. And when Naaman saw him running after him, he came down from the chariot to meet him and said, is there peace? And he said, peace, my master has sent me, saying, look, even now 2 young men of the sons of the Nabim have come to me from the mountains of Ephraim. Please give them a kikar of silver and 2 changes of garment. And Naaman said, please accept 2 kikars. And he urged him and bound 2 kikars of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of garments, and handed them to the 2 of his servants, and they bore them ahead of him. And when he came to the high place, he took them from their hand and stored them away in the house, and let the men go. And they went, and he went in and stood before his master. And Elisha said to him, where do you go, Gehazi? And he said, your servant did not go anywhere. But he said to him, did not my heart go with you when the man turned back from his chariot to meet you? Is it time to accept silver and to accept garments and olive trees and vineyards and sheep and cattle and male and female servants? So let the leprosy of Naaman cling to you and your descendants forever. And he went out from him as leprous as snow. Okay. Chapter 6. I think I can get through chapter 6 before this computer. Well, yeah, willing I can. Okay, chapter 6. And the sons of the Nabim said to Elisha, see, the place where we dwell with you is too small for us. Please let us go to the Jordan, and let every man take a log from there, and let us make there a place to dwell. And he answered, go. Then the one said, please undertake to go with your servants. And he answered, I shall go. And he went with them, and they came to the Jordan, or the Jordan, I think, and they cut down trees. And it came to be, as one was cutting down a tree, that the iron axe head fell into the water. And he cried out and said, oh, my master, for it was borrowed. And the man of Elohim said, where did it fall? And he showed him the place, and he cut off a stick and threw it in there and made the iron float. And he said, pick it up. And he reached out his hand and took it. And the sovereign of Aram was fighting against Yasharel and took counsel with his servants, saying, my camp is in such and such a place. And the man of Elohim sent to the sovereign of Yasharel, saying, be on guard, do not pass this place, for the Arameans are coming down there. The sovereign of Yasharel then sent to the place of which the man of Elohim had spoken to him and warned him, so that he was on his guard there, not once and not twice. And this greatly troubled the heart of the sovereign of Aram. And he called his servants and said to them, declare to me, who of us is for the sovereign of Yasharel? And one of his servants said, none, my master, O sovereign, for Elisha the Nabi, who is in Yasharel, declares to the sovereign of Yasharel the words that you speak in your bedroom. And he said, go and see where he is, so that I send and get him. And it was reported to him, saying, see, he is in Dothan. And he sent horses and chariots and a great army there. And they came by night and surrounded the city. And the servant of the man of Elohim rose early and went out and saw an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. And his servant said to him, oh, my master, what do we do? And he answered, do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. I love that verse. And he answered, do not fear, for those who are with us is more than those who are with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Yah, I pray, open his eyes and let him see. And Yah opened the eyes of the young man, and he looked and saw the mountain covered with horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. Wow. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed to Yah and said, strike this nation with blindness, I pray. And he struck them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said to them, this is not the way, nor is this the city. Follow me and let me bring you to the man whom you seek. But he led them to Shemaron. And it came to be when they had come to Shemaron that Elisha said, Yah, open the eyes of these men so that they see. So that they see. And Yah opened their eyes, and they looked and saw they were in the midst of Shemaron. And when the sovereign of Yasharel saw them, he said to Elisha, my father, should I smite? But he said, do not smite. Do you smite those whom you have taken captive with your sword and your bow? Put food and water before them, and let them eat and drink, and go to their master. Ooh. Okay. Go to their master. And he made a great feast for them. Okay. And after they ate and drank, he let them go, and they went to their master. And the bands of Aramean raiders came no more into the land of Yasharel. And after this, it came to be that Ben-Hadad, the sovereign of Aram, mustered all his army and went up and besieged Shemaron. And there was a great scarcity of food in Shemaron. And see, they besieged it until a donkey's head went at 80 pieces of silver, and 1/4 of a cob of dove droppings for 5 pieces of silver. Wow. And it came to be, as the sovereign of Yasharel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried out to him, saying, help, my master, O sovereign. And he said, if Yah does not help you, where do I find help for you? From the threshing floor or from the winepress? And the sovereign said to her, what is troubling you? And she answered, this woman said to me, give your son and let us eat him today, and tomorrow we eat my son. Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. So we cooked my son and ate him. And I said to her on the next day, give your son and eat him. But she has hidden her son. And it came to be, when the sovereign heard the words of the woman, that he tore his garments, and he passed by on the wall, and the people looked and saw the sackcloth on his body underneath. And he said, Elohim, do so to me and more also, if the head of Elisha son of Shaphat remains on him today. And Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were sitting with him. And the sovereign sent a man ahead of him. But before the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, "Do you see how this son of a murderer has sent someone to take away my head? Look, when the messenger comes, shut the door and hold him fast at the door. Is not the sound of the master's feet behind him?" While he was still speaking with them, then see, the messenger came down to him, and he said, "Look, this evil is from Yah. Why should I wait for Yah any longer?" Okay. So we've reached chapter 7 of Second Kings. We read all the way through chapter 6, and when I next see you, we will continue with chapter 7. Blessings, and thank you for staying with me. I will see you soon. Shalom.